The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome to the Lemonade Car Show. I'm your host, Lorraine Sommerfeld. We're talking insurance today. I'm joined by Georgini. He's the president of the APA, and Pete Karageorgos. He's with the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Welcome, Pete. It's been a while since I've seen you. Glad that you're here. Insurance. It's changing rapidly. We all have to have it, so I think this is a really good time to have this show. We're overdue. Pete, what are the big trends or changes you're seeing right now in Canada-wide with insurance?
Well, one of the key issues that we're seeing across the country, and it's because of vehicles, the cost to repair and fix vehicles after they've been involved in a crash is going up, and so that's impacting people's premiums, what people are paying for insurance, challenge even in terms of, in some cases, getting repairs done quickly and promptly, because simple repair is no longer simple anymore, especially with technology. So that is one of the issues. Government and insurance systems across the country as well. We're seeing that there are challenges. Insurance is a provincially mandated product across the country. And so whether it's British Columbia, Ontario, Alberta, Newfoundland, there are issues with the products and the pricing of it. And so we're trying to address those with governments in those jurisdictions to improve things for consumers.
I think sometimes people aren't aware that our insurance policies, we get mad at the insurance company for putting rates up, but everything has to be approved by government. So they have their hand in it. So as much as you're yelling at your insurance company, which I do frequently, there's more involved here that sometimes is hidden.
Yes. Part of it, though, is that there are inefficiencies sometimes in having a lot of different providers competing in a somewhat chaotic market.
Yeah.
And even the other thing with government on the rates is sometimes they're not looking at the system. So are injuries still a problem for you or not right now?
And the issue with injuries in jurisdictions like Ontario, they're still an issue. We haven't been able to solve that compared to other provinces. The cost for injury claims in Ontario, when you compare it to Alberta, Atlantic provinces that have a similar type of insurance product system, we still lead the way in Ontario in terms of cost. So they're still high, but what has sort of taken attention is the cost to repair newer vehicles.
And that's going to get worse.
Well, it is going to be a challenge. It's a challenge already, and it's a challenge because vehicle manufacturers are putting so much technology into cars. And so gone are the days when someone can take their vehicle and replace a bumper cover, paint it, and be
now a bumper cover has a camera in it, sensors, possibly. There's other stuff in there.
Well, and the technicians who are no longer, just body shop people. There truly are technicians, and in a lot of cases, they need to reprogram systems and align systems. And many of the smaller body shops, unless they're specifically aligned with the original equipment manufacturer, the dealers, they may not have the technology or the programming to do that. So the cost is still high for them, and they have to then sub out that work to the manufacturing shops. So it increases the delays, increases costs, because that information is still proprietary. So the government has a role to play to try and level the field, and so we're encouraging them to do so in that respect, as well as improvements to the insurance products. But it's ultimately the regulators in the various markets that are approving those products. And even in British Columbia, which is a government-run system, they are now leading the way across Canada and having the most expensive auto insurance.
I was going to say, for a long time, the public auto insurance provinces had avoided the crises that you had in the private auto insurance provinces, but that's not true in BC anymore. What happened?
No, in BC and even Manitoba, we've seen reports, and it's publicly government reports, where it talks about the challenges. Now, BC's challenge really is the fact that as a government-operated system, as a single-source system, there's
with a fair amount of political meddling as well.
There's inefficiencies that have been created.
Before an election, your premium goes up or down.
That's it's not truly an insurance system in the sense that it's a government-owned and operated system where the government also looks at taking profits out of it to help in other areas. And so we're also seeing fraud, and BC and Manitoba through their public system. They've issued reports highlighting the concerns that they have, and they're seeing with fraud. And we've seen that throughout the rest of the country, but now they're acknowledging that fraud even in those systems. So it's a problem that crosses provincial boundaries that everyone needs to.
Is this the fraud we're used to seeing, which is set up car crashes and bought out therapists and cops and tow truck drivers and all that? Is it basically the same old fraud?
It's typical fraud of that sort. The other type of fraud that we see sometimes, and one of the larger Canadian insurance companies just this past week put out their 2018 fraud study. They talk about also opportunistic fraud, where people look to expand their claims. It happens. It also
Camera was in the car and a computer was in the car.
well, and that type of thing, or the damage on the right front side as well as the rear left side. We're all from that same collision, and so that occurs. Fraud as well. It happens even at the time the person takes out their insurance policy, because some areas have higher claims costs, and so to try and avoid that, if you're in that area, you will give a different address to be rated differently, and hopefully get cheaper insurance. So if you're defrauding your insurance company by saying you live in an area that has lower claims than the area you really live in, that's also.
I like this topic. We're going to talk more about this. We'll be right back with more Lemonade. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by Crown, OMVIC, Hotspot Auto Parts, and Sound Insurance. We're talking insurance today. I'm joined by Georgini, the president of the APA, and Pete Karageorgos with IBC. We're talking about fraud. You also were talking about how expensive it is to fix, say, a bumper. And we have a thing where if you have a collision, clear it and get it off. And if you have less than, I think it's $5,000 now in Ontario, that's when you go report it and all that. We have no way of knowing. We used to be able to look at a car and go, that's going to be $500. It's a dent in the front fender. Now, so much stuff is in there that a normal person, I'm pretending I'm normal, you can't always know. So I say report anyway, because it's safer, but don't just walk away. You could have clips that are broken and compromised systems that are your cameras and safety stuff that you rely on. Is this what's causing rates to go up?
On the physical damage side, it is. We're seeing the costs to fix sheet metal, fix vehicles, has gone up, and actually the limit in Ontario has been increased to $2,000.
Oh, two? I thought it was $5. Okay,
but again, you look at a damaged vehicle and you assume, it doesn't look that bad. But you're right. Once you get behind the sheet metal that's out front, there's so much electronics that needs to be recalibrated, checked out. Sensors, if they need to be replaced, they're expensive. Backup cameras and the like too. There's a lot of technology that didn't exist in cars a few years ago, and that's
what's happening to car theft? Because I have to tell you personally, we were very disappointed when the mechanical key totally disappeared. I could see, not the key alone, but the key with the electronics, because at that point you didn't need to break anything physically to get the car, to steal the car. Yeah. And what is happening today?
Car theft is still an issue, and part of what's concerning of the type of car theft that the industry is seeing, and also law enforcement too, is in those cases we have reports in certain areas of thieves targeting vehicles, and in some cases they're targeting higher end, larger sport utility vehicles for export for one reason, and so that's an issue that the IBC and our investigative services folks are working with the border services. But the other issue is being able to get into and start cars without keys, with key fobs, and technology is available, and there are videos on the internet that show this, and even cases that show this, where thieves circle a person's home with a particular type of vehicle in the driveway, and they're looking to try and get that key fob signal so that they can relay it to an accomplice by the vehicle and get into the car. And
so don't leave your keys near the door. Make sure you have them under some kind of a protection, RF protection.
RF protection.
I know a girl that puts it in foil and puts it in her freezer. because
That's a bit extreme.
she's a computer person, like she's really smart. But I'm going every time I have to go. Like I'm just glad when the kids put them on the hook by the door, right? But we should.
And that I think is what the thieves prey on.
Yeah.
The simple
Thanks.
fact that many times we will walk in and put the keys down on
Right there.
a countertop, on a coffee table, or on a hook by the door.
Yeah.
And so for them, with these new types of keyless entries that vehicles are coming with, that is becoming an issue, and it's a concern. And we've seen police reports based on strings of certain types of models in cars that thieves are going after because they've been able to defeat those systems or find workarounds.
Let me ask you something. For years, I do every year the most stolen vehicles in Canada, and even last year, the top ones were always like 2007 pickup trucks and stuff. So they wanted pickups, but the older ones was
That was
because
often for parts, I think, for collision repair.
they could
parts?
also steal them.
Oh.
They could defeat
Yeah,
systems in them. But now, are we finding newer vehicles moving up as they're learning how to defeat
we're
the
seeing
security systems?
some of those, and again, it's volume. So as we see more and more of these types of vehicles on the road, you'll see more and more of them make the list. IBC puts out an annual top 10 stolen cars list. And,
Yeah, I steal it and get a column out of it. Yeah.
So we're glad that it gets used out there, but it's a wake-up call to people. And what we've seen in the past too is, in a lot of cases across the country, what we are seeing stolen are pickup trucks and large vehicles. And in some of those cases, again, they may be stolen for parts. In some cases, they may be stolen and rebranded and
Is
sold
that
to
still easy to do?
well, it is if you have the right tools to do it, and also the right accomplices to be able to register. And sometimes, again, some people are buying cars by curbsiders, thinking it's a great deal, and if it's too good a
that's
deal
your
to
first
send,
sign.
exactly.
Pete, will you
Just sort
pick
of-
up a VIN? Like, this is the vehicle identification
Yeah.
number, and for years the provinces were in silos. So if you took a VIN number from a vehicle in Alberta, you could register it in Quebec, nobody checked. Nowadays, isn't that supposed to be national?
I don't know if it is fully national yet. I think that's still an issue
You
that
could
that
still
exists.
have the same VIN on 10 different cars? Because that is what used to happen.
Well, I
nowadays
don't know
sometimes.
to what extent that problem still exists. I know that we're working with provincial governments and law enforcement to try and address that issue and that concern. So, and even people, buying vehicles that are recovered or salvaged vehicles that aren't branded as such is a bit of a concern as
We're
well.
gonna come
because
back
those
and-
may not be safe.
We're going to come back and talk about this a little bit more. We'll be back with more Lemonade after this break. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by Crown and OMVIC. We're still talking about insurance, and we're joined now by Debbie Arnold. She's with Sound Insurance, and she is our Ontario expert. So no offense, IBC over there. You cover all of Canada. No, Pete Karageorgos. This is going to be interesting because two perspectives, and Ontario is a crazy for insurance. We're the most populous province, which
Yes.
so
With
everyone's
lots of
complaining
things.
all the time that insurance is going up. I tell them the normal things like a headlight doesn't cost $20 to fix anymore. It can cost $650. So you've talked about physical damage. Debbie, what's going on here in Ontario that is making people the most crazy? How's that for a question?
Oh, their rates are going up. And we're seeing rate increases anywhere from 15 upwards of 30%. The market's very hard right now. Underwriting is tightening because insurance companies are losing money in Ontario. And it's a business just like anything else. They need to see a profit, and they're not. So they're taking steps to try and mitigate loss. They're trying to reduce their claims costs, and unfortunately, it's very unpopular. So we have a lot of challenges in Ontario that unfortunately aren't yet being addressed by our new government. And there's
Wait for that. I have a question.
Yes.
There's a lot of talk about rates being set by postal code, by where you live. And this has been thrown into play by
Yes.
politicians looking to score points. I'm like, if you live in a place where lots of collisions are occurring, guess what? it's going to cost more because people in rural areas, why should they pay more to bring this down here? Is this the same? Does everyone in Canada, is it based on postal code?
Territory is one of the factors.
It is.
That regardless of whether you are in a province like British Columbia or Manitoba that has a government-owned and operated insurance system, or Alberta, Ontario, the Atlantic provinces that have private insurance companies, or in the U.S. or anywhere else in the world, the idea of grouping people by areas is one of the factors that they use, yes.
So this is a lot of nonsense then when they're rattling that chain? Does that just make people get like excited about it?
They do, because, and you're hearing it a lot out of Brampton. Brampton's the highest rated territory in Ontario. There's a reason Brampton is. The claims costs there are typically about triple what they are in the rest
Triple?
of
I didn't know
Ontario.
that.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, if there's bodily injury involved, if there's any injuries involved, typically you're triple the cost. So it's going to cost more to insure your car if you live in Brampton. And that's just a fact of life. Unfortunately, the first bill that was put forth was thrown out of the House, which I was very grateful for, because I don't think it's fair that rural Ontario should have to supplement and subsidize what's going on in Brampton. Unfortunately, there's a lot of abuse in the Ontario system, and that needs to be more, I think more regulation needs to be there.
And we are talking to government and trying to explain to them, here's how the system operates, because insurance is different from any other product. When insurance companies sell the product, they set that price, not necessarily knowing if in 2 years' time, because you do have 2 years to make a claim, if that's going to cost you more money. And so when we're talking about some of the abuse that we're seeing and some of the challenges we're seeing, it's a government product. They set the product up and insurance companies sell it. So they are at a disadvantage compared to, say, even a car manufacturer who knows the price of their product before it leaves the plant. Insurance is different. And so we're trying to work with government to improve the system.
And a lot of that would, if, you know, there was that study done in April 2016 by David Marshall, Fair Benefits, Fairly Delivered, and that would be a wonderful thing if they would implement at least some of the recommendations. I think treatment protocols in Ontario would be extremely important and helpful in reducing cost. I think there's way too many lawsuits that are frivolous. I think that needs to be reined in. And that's part of the judicial system, though, because once precedent has been set by taking these frivolous, unmerited lawsuits to
How do you really feel about them, Debbie?
Oh, I have 3 ongoing that are over $1 million for nothing claims. I have pictures of the damage to the vehicles, and this is part of the biggest
type of
problem.
Abuse that's all drivers are paying for, is you know, trying to crack down and address that. It's a challenge. In many cases, at IBC we have a consumer center, and we talk to consumers all the time. And they are frustrated about the fact that sometimes people know about neighbors or friends who might have a small claim, and because of, you know, the ability to get a lawyer and there are ads everywhere to try and advance that claim and make it bigger than what it is. So we need to focus, and this report, Fair Benefits, Fairly Delivered, really hits the nail on the head. We have to change the system and focus on people getting care, not cash. If you're injured in a crash, let's get you better. Let's not focus on how much. Let's focus on the type of services you need, the healthcare benefits you need to get back into your pre-accident condition.
IBC has a snitch line, right? On your website? Sorry, an 800 number?
We do have a phone number.
Is that Canada-wide?
It's a toll-free number across Canada, yes.
Yeah, so if you have a little issue.
All that information is available on our website, which is www.ibc.ca.
Okay. We'll be back with more of the Lemonade Car Show following this break. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show. I'm your host, Lorraine Sommerfeld. I'm here with Debbie Arnold from Sound Insurance and Pete Karageorgos from Insurance Bureau of Canada. We have some calls. We always have calls for insurance. Let's go to the phones.
Oh, hi. I was just calling on your show. They said if you drop your car into a pothole, it's a comp claim. I just want to correct them. It's classed as a collision claim. Anyways, thanks. Have a great day.
Potholes, I guess somebody said comp at a different show. I don't remember. But potholes is always a hot topic. You can report it. The city never pays for it.
No.
So
No, you're not going to sue the city, and you're not going to sue the road.
Yeah,
it's a collision loss because it is a road hazard that you have to be aware of.
Okay. Is it worth claiming usually?
It depends how much damage you do to your car.
Okay.
In some cases, I know people who have done hundreds of dollars worth, if not a few $1,000s worth of damage to the tires, the rims, their suspension. So it depends on the size of the pothole, how fast you're going. You need to look at, just as insurance adjusters look at each claim on its own merits, you need to determine whether you're going to make a claim and what your deductible is. Because comprehensive and collision, those are optional coverages that people have, and you could choose different deductible levels for those types of coverages.
And you also want to be cognizant that it's a single vehicle accident and it's an at-fault.
Yes.
So that may mess up your rating if you don't.
That was my next question, is your rates will go up if you make...
May go up.
May go up?
If you haven't had any prior losses and you have accident waiver protection, then your rate will not go up, but it is an at-fault loss. It's subject to a deductible. And if it's a rateable loss, so if you go to another insurance company, they're going to rate in full for it.
Okay.
Whereas the insurance company you're with, if you have accident waiver, you're not rated for that loss.
But collision waiver, I don't use the word accident, sorry. Collision waiver.
Driving record protector,
That
let's
is your
call it.
getting out of jail free card, though. You don't
Yes.
waste it on a pothole. You waste
No.
it when you run over a school bus full of kids. Like, that's when you hold that one, right?
God forbid that should
Okay,
happen.
sorry. I
But
should have worded that differently. Okay, maybe now's a good time to go to another phone call.
Yes, my name is Ken. Question is, how long after you report an accident with your insurance company can you collect on it? Say I did it in October of last year. Do I have a certain amount of time, or can I do it within the next 2 years? Thank you. Bye.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused. He's reported it, but
no, I think he was asking how long does he have to report the damage to his insurer?
Well, you have, under the policy, you're obligated to report a claim within 7 days. And so you've got to do that. In his case, if it's a situation where he's reported the damage to the car, to his vehicle, to his insurance company, they may have even allowed him, some companies may cash settle you, may give you cash payment to go and do the repairs, or you can go and to one of their preferred shops to get the repairs done. It really depends on which avenue you go to fix your vehicle. Most companies in this day and age are going to encourage you to get the vehicle repaired as quickly as possible because they don't want the vehicles on the road that could have a subsequent claim to it. And then if you didn't fix the first claim, it gets a little trickier in terms of assessing the value of a second claim. So many insurance companies have their own direct repair shop relationships too that encourage people, make it simple for people to get the repairs done. I would encourage people, and again, get the car fixed as quickly as possible.
okay, Debbie, what if he's talking about that I'm in a collision and I'm fine, and then 4 months later somebody says to me, you know, you've got whiplash or something happened, you don't know in that moment.
For injuries, you have 2 years less a day.
Okay, maybe
to
that's
make
what
a
he's
claim.
alluding to then.
It really depends on what he's talking about. You know, bodily injury versus physical damage are two different things.
Okay.
Honestly, any claim you have, it's best to report it to your broker. Agents are a little bit different for the direct writers because automatically, as soon as you say anything, it becomes a claim. If you have a broker, at least you can have that
A
discussion.
layer of discretion.
Exactly, and there is a
Okay.
level of discretion there that you have that you don't have with a direct writer. So I encourage all my clients, if anything happens, call me. Let's have a conversation. Don't be afraid to call me. I'd rather you call me and discuss it rather than calling the insurance company directly on something that's minor.
And flip side, I know somebody that was in a collision and the other party waited till that 2 years less a day to go in with a claim for
With the lawsuit.
ridiculous claims and stuff, and it was devastating. So if you're on the other side of it, know that somebody could wait
Well,
2 years.
You know, they could, and that's why even in some instances it's worthwhile to have that conversation with your broker, with the agent, with the insurance company, because you may be surprised that you drive away and think, oh, that was a small fender bender,
deal.
no injuries, and then you get a letter from a lawyer seeking damages 2 years from now,
That's-
and you forgot about it. You know, you didn't report to your insurance company at that point in time. it creates more issues.
Yeah, it puts them in a prejudicial
Yes, you look like you didn't
situation,
do
right?
anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And it's always best to be upfront about everything with your agent or broker.
Well, most of us learned that when we were little kids.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have for Lemonade. I'd like to thank Debbie Arnold and Pete Karageorgos for all our insurance questions. And of course, our sponsors, Omvic, Crown, Hotspot Auto Parts, and Sound Insurance. That's her. And thanks to you, viewers.